Philosophical naturalism is the idea according to which reality doesn't extend beyond nature. If you can't see it, taste it, touch it, poke it, prod it, and experiment on it, it probably doesn't exist. Philosophical naturalism rejects supernatural entities like God and prefers to interpret the universe as something governed by natural laws and forces. So on this view, scientific investigation is probably the only route that's really going to lead to truth about the most fundamental matters of human existence. As you can imagine, naturalism naturally takes issue with the miraculous claims of Christianity, such that Jesus was raised from the dead. But my concern with philosophical naturalism is that it wrongly shuts the door in the face of the possibility of supernatural accounts of reality. It wrongly and prematurely rules out the weighty, high-stakes claims of Christianity. You see, when the possibility of supernatural intervention enters the picture, the naturalist is going to demand a higher level of evidential support for that claim because they're already committed to the deeply embedded presupposition that there is no supernatural reality. Now, what I'm describing is a kind of irrational denial. It's like in interviews on the local news when a perpetrator's mother is being questioned about the crime her son allegedly committed. Irrational denial kicks in. Johnny's a good boy. Johnny would never rob a bank. I just can't believe it. And the thing is, she's probably right to some degree. Johnny normally is a good boy. Johnny probably usually obeys the law. But maybe this time things are actually different. We need to follow the evidence. And in a similar way, I can agree with the philosophical naturalist that resurrections don't normally happen. It's an outrageous claim. It doesn't fit with the conventions of everyday experience. But we need to, again, follow the evidence. See, when God enters the everyday, ordinary experiences of human beings and does something miraculous, people naturally get a little uncomfortable. Now, most people could honestly care less that Jesus was a nice person who taught peace and love. If that's all Jesus is, we can choose to ignore him, take him or leave him. Who really cares either way? But throw some weirdness into the story, and now you've got my attention, right? Jesus died a violent death in fulfillment of prophecy. Jesus was raised to life by the power of God according to the scriptures. Jesus will save those who profess faith in him while judging those who rebel against the holiness of God. Now you've got my attention. Because see, what's happening here, you're telling me that my eternal destiny depends on who Jesus was, who he is, what he did, and how I respond to him. Our naturalistic bias wants to kick in. We think, no, we can't treat those truth claims with any kind of seriousness. In other words, there's real history and then there's ghost stories. And we're going to side with real history. But again, here's the thing. Historical facts are still historical facts, even if they're about a guy who claims to be God and whose followers claimed he was raised from the dead. I don't really care how weird the claim is. Truth claims should be meticulously investigated. Truth is truth. So here's an important example of naturalistic bias at work. See, we assume we know a lot about the life of historical figures like Julius Caesar. And that's because of manuscript evidence written by people like Cicero, who was a contemporary of Caesar, or Plutarch, who wrote about 100 years after Caesar. Now, there are a meager 15 manuscripts of Cicero's work dating from between 400 and 800 AD. This is hundreds of years after Cicero lived. There are 6 key manuscripts detailing Plutarch's account of Caesar dating over 1,000 years after Caesar lived. Now, that manuscript evidence, as poor as it might be, is generally considered to be good enough to convince most people that the accounts of Julius Caesar are reliable. But turning to Jesus, there are multiple eyewitness accounts in the forms of the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all of which date to within 60 years of the death of Jesus. There are external corroborations of the Gospel accounts which refer to Jesus as well. So secular historians like Suetonius and Tacitus, Pliny the Younger, and Josephus wrote corroborating remarks about the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. In addition, the earliest manuscript of the New Testament dates to roughly 120 AD, less than 100 years after the original events took place. roughly 30 years after the writing of the original manuscript. Over 5,000 Greek manuscripts exist for the New Testament, and the internal consistency of these manuscripts is astounding. Now, I'd say we have something to go on here. Compared to Caesar, whom we accept without question, Jesus is doing pretty well. See, the indisputable fact is that there is far better manuscript evidence for Jesus than for Caesar. So why do so many people have a problem with the historicity of Jesus? Well, again, it's because the truth claims surrounding him are high-stakes claims. See, if Jesus is who he says he is, then we are required to do something about that. And frankly, many of us don't want to do something about that. A simple acknowledgement of Jesus as a historical figure is an undemanding move. But submission to Jesus as Lord and Savior of your life, that's a consequential step of eternal import. So when we engage with people over the historicity of Jesus, we need to get to the heart of the philosophical presuppositions that we carry, so that we can unravel the intellectual anxieties that we sometimes carry. For some people, Christianity is just too good to be true. For others, it's too heavy, too weighty, too eternally ponderous to accept. And that's where we need to challenge our naturalistic biases.